I'm live. I want to have a little post discussion, post talk. What the hell just happened? I just had the Jared Taylor experience. Oh, what the? My girlfriend was watching. That's so weird. My girlfriend was listening to the whole thing. Low volume. What do you mean? Right now? Hello, hello. Check, check, check. Mic check. Hello. Greetings. Maybe I'm just talking low. What's up? Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what went down. Um, I didn't look at the chat once, so you cannot hear me at all. Hello, hello, hello. Why am I failing? It's a good question. Hold on. Hello, hello, hello. Is that any better? I'd like to hear from the outside perspective because, obviously that was me just talking. Okay, louder? Can you hear me? Are we good? You tell me. You banned 1 billion people. Sweet. 1,000,001. Awesome. Was there negativity? What did people? How could you have a problem with that? I'm just talking. Hold on. With my girlfriend. 1 sec. So yeah, I just want to hear what you guys what you thought of that. Maybe tell me your expectation versus how it went. He says, "Cool whip, white, whine." Yeah, it was. It was a great chat. I got to go to bed. Work in the morning. Thanks for the stream, Devin. Oh, you're welcome, Chris. Enjoy work. I'll, try to chat with you tomorrow while you're at work. Thank you to the moderators. It's a lot of talking for me today. Why didn't I ask about God and religion? We agreed that we weren't going to touch it because, it's a separate topic, really, quite frankly. You could have him on and talk about baseball if you want, but lovely stream. Didn't see the interview. Okay. Thank you, Gina. Yeah, I hope we covered new ground. I tried to press him on certain issues. He's obviously very well versed in his talking points. So a lot of what he's saying is going to be repetitive in some regards, but that's only attributed to the fact that he has to say these things. These things are not being digested. So it's not like, he's coming up with new crazy ideas about the topic. He's talking about the correct things to be talking about. But he's an affable guy, very nice, very pleasant dude. Great conversation. How could anyone think it's less than incredible? Yeah. 500 and 600 people. Wow. You bound them all. Awesome. I'm just trying to think, think if you're a regressive listening to that conversation. If you go into that wanting to hate both of us, that would be interesting. If you go into that being a Jared Taylor fan, going, who's this Hillary supporting motherfucker? I wonder how they interpreted it. If you're a Jew hater, you're probably not going to like that talk. If you're a black person, what is the black person's perspective of a conversation like that? Look, I'm the first to tell you this is not a rah-rah session. It's not a celebratory. If you want to just boost your self-esteem and be like, listen, buddy, you're black and that's just fantastic. It's amazing. Here's a bunch of black people that have done crazy great things and you're black. Oh my God, you're probably crazy great too. You could do that all you want. I could literally do that. I could just, we talked about it. We're like, look, millions of amazing black people. Obviously, it's like readily apparent. But equally as readily apparent is some of the huge problems in their community. And it's not just, those don't exist in a vacuum. What is probably a bigger problem than, for example, the single parent ratio and crime stats is the fact that they hate white people. That's a major problem. If you have a roommate and you're like, yeah, my roommate, I live with a guy, he doesn't do his dishes and he's late on the rent, but oh yeah, also he hates my guts. That's going to manifest in every way possible. You understand? So it's really that core emotional feeling. If you have racial hatred towards another group of people, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be like a this ain't going to work out type level problem. And I was trying to push him. I was trying to ask him, how can we make this work? Is there, because he's dead set on separation. And it's an argument. It's something I'm interested to listen to, not because I think it's practical or is in danger of happening anytime soon. But I think it's interesting for a variety of reasons. A, it already is what's happening, just without the legal authority, without government authority. So, from that standpoint, it's very non-controversial as a thing to say. Hey, people of different ethnic groups should live among each other. That just would probably be less problems. Go to New York. Ask Billy Bong. Ask him which neighborhood is which race, or which cultural group. Where are the Jews? Where are the Puerto Ricans? He knows. That's just the way it is. It's not mandated. Fuck, I'm tired of talking, man. Whew, Christ, my actual cheeks hurt. It's incredible. Now, I will bring on anybody who wants to sort of shoot the shit a little bit here. Let me throw this out to my Discord. Hold on. If anybody wants to come in, just jump in and give me some of your thoughts and opinions. I've heard my own voice for quite some time. You should talk to Donovan Warland. He's biracial and says he wants to live in an ethno state. Well, that's one of the questions I didn't get to. I was going to ask Jared Taylor about why is it that biracial people. I mean, I kind of already know the answer. I was just curious to know his take on it. But why are they so hostile and so adamant that, I'm going to pick one of my races? Shouldn't they be really? Doesn't it make more sense that they would be the proponents of unity? If you're half black, half white, shouldn't you be the first one to be like, hey, race isn't that big of a deal. We should all live together. I hear somebody's breathing, and it reminds me of my old days in porn. There it is.
Have you had surgery to have your foreskin reattached yet?
Oh my God! What state of inebriation are you in? What did you guys think? Take the floor.
That was a wonderful conversation. I mean, as predicted, what did I say to you, Devin? It's going to be a pleasant conversation between two college graduates. And guess what it was? It was a pleasant conversation. Mm-hmm. And he's funny. You guys had a good chemistry. Mm-hmm. It was really nice. Well, I liked it.
It is true that everything I touch turns to wonderful. Somebody once took a picture. It was me and a huge just pile of dog shit. And it was described as a wonderful picture. So,
I thought I was listening to two English eccentrics. It was beautiful.
Yeah, do you think we were racist, Maggie? You're racial.
There was no racism whatsoever.
I think it's sad how it's surprising to people that he's
it's amazing
just such a pleasant...
The reputation he's garnered for the last 20 years, and then you talk to him and you're like, hey, what the hell are these people talking about?
Yeah.
It's funny because his ideas were seen as more crazy the further back in time you go. So he's saying the same stuff, but now it's just like, what's the big deal? Like, this is normal. I mean, I pushed back against him on some of his aspirational things. Like I made a note that he is completely detached from the project of making this work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a guy who's already he's like, my marriage is dead. Okay, it's over. Like I'm just looking for a divorce lawyer because it ain't happening. Now, I'm sort of sitting there going, maybe we can get a marriage counselor? Maybe? Is there any other route here? Yeah, for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently
he's given up.
Yeah, and that aspect is sad. And because, look, what he's suggesting, which is government legal mandated ethno neighborhoods or subset of the country, that's never going to happen.
No.
So we're stuck living with friggin' brown people like Aimee and Alf. And it's like, the question is, how do we best cope with their brownness? I'm kidding.
I know.
You enjoy our foods. That's how you do it.
Right. Yeah. There is no refuting that part of the argument. Hey, multiculturalism leads to better food. Yep, you're correct. Yeah. That is true. But we could probably do that without millions of people immigrating to the country.
Yeah, he also has a point about that. I think that was one of the things that's super important to talk about, is that mass immigration is not a good thing. To perturb the natural demographics of a place so quickly and with such a huge influx of people from alien populations, that is what's going to cause more in-group, out-group hostility. Because if you do it slowly, at least people have a little bit more time to adjust, right? It's still unnatural, but people do have time if you do it in a smart and tactical way. But if you're just going to let people in, like in Germany, France, all these places, you're going to see the issues we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it is the way it is, and we can't lie to ourselves. And I'd love for it to work. I mean, I'd love for these problems not to be there, but look, the people on the left and many people of color, they feel like the best way to fight the legacy of racism, not even modern day racism, because they're making half that shit up, like 90% of it up. The best way to fight that is to be racist. It's the most insane thing ever.
Yeah.
It's just like fight fire with fire is what they but there is no fire. So it's just, now you're the arsonist, motherfucker. You're burning shit down for no reason. And it's so sad, and yet they keep churning up the past, talk about slavery, talk about Dylan Roof, talk about, let it go.
I think people take things kind of to an extreme when they think about these things. And I saw that a lot in the chat, where people are like, multiculturalism doesn't work. And then to some extent, it doesn't work. But I mean, it depends on which cultures you're mixing,
Yeah, and there's tons of...
I think they take it as, when you say multicultural, that you're saying mix every culture,
Right. There's many times where this has worked. I mean, and maybe it is a numbers game. But look, the Muslims in Los Angeles, they coexist with the non-Muslims in Los Angeles because they're not huge in number, and they are not that religious. So they're not radical Muslims. So they're just sort of assimilated whatever Muslims, and everybody is fine with them. Also, they're very rich, which is a factor. If the Muslims of LA were dirt poor, they'd probably be like, fuck, I need to, feel good about myself. So let me go back to hardcore religion, or let me find some other identity that can uplift me. The Asians, why don't we not hear about the Asians bitching? Asian lives matter. They're like, dude, we're doing fine. We have great families and jobs, and we're making money, and we don't need to be bitching and being victims our whole lives. So that's what we need. But yeah, I mean, we have seen this work, and I pointed out Britain, and I pointed out Melbourne, and there's unions between different groups of people, so it is possible. Yeah, but it is more difficult. I would be the first to grant it's way more difficult.
Yeah, it has to be done carefully. You can't just willy-nilly, open the borders and say, everybody come in.
And also, there's some basic things that must be established at the beginning. Number one, do you hate us? Like, if we're going to live together, it's going to be a problem if you hate us, right? And so part of me is like, look, how well did you expect it to go to import a bunch of slaves into your country, enslave them for hundreds of years, rape them, torture them, kill them, and then set them free to live among you as your neighbor and your equal? How well was that gonna go? I mean, if you look at it from that standpoint, we've done a pretty damn good job, considering all things considered. I would say. I would say massive progress has been made. But it is very far from ideal, because this chip on their shoulder, it comes with a lot of baggage, a lot of history, and they are not over it. They, as a people, are not over the shit that we, modern-day white people, had no part of. So they need to see a therapist and deal with their inferiority complex and just get on with their lives. And that's not a nice message. That's a real message. That's a message a father would give his son. It's not a message that's going to kiss your ass and suck your dick and be like, oh yeah, it's the rest of the world is unfair to you. And I'm sure you'd be winning your Nobel Prize if not for the whites. It's all bullshit. So that was me talking a bunch. I maybe I should have read the chat, but I felt like the chat was probably gonna be cancer and just too fast. And
it was at first. It was at first, like, for the first half we were just banning people like crazy, and then the second half it's all like the people who weren't sturdy, and it worked out.
Devin, what do you believe his religious views are? I assume it's some sort of Christian derivative.
I would assume so.
Although he could be a closet atheist, which I'm always likely to believe. If somebody's that bright, it's hard to think that they're not an atheist. But for political reasons, he might be pulling an Obama, basically. But I don't know. It's neither here nor there. It's not the topic. Third Kunjani stream of the day. Wow.
Beautiful.
Never looked at what that way before, Devin. Teresa the Kid is happy about something I said, which is cool. Yeah, it's just...
awesome. I like that. That was so good that you did that.
I'm happy with it. I'm weirded out that my girlfriend listened to it. That's funny.
Oh, awesome. What did she think? Has she given you her feedback yet?
She WhatsApped me and was like, "You're a racist. We're over." But I'm guessing she's kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you shit.
But yeah, he's a serious man. He takes this very serious. This is his life's work. It's the burden he's chosen to haul. He's cleaning his room and he's taking up the cross.
Nowhere in any of that conversation did I get any idea that he was hateful or stoking a race war or stoking hatred of anybody. I mean, he was talking about how black people are better at certain things, which is that's such a duh thing to us, right? But I just don't get where people get this oh, he's a hate monger. I don't understand. It's so frustrating.
I should have mentioned that most of what is being discussed is basically a dick measuring contest. That's what we're witnessing. It's not actually a discussion about anything. It's just a human being who has subjective interests and an ego trying to hype up himself in the conversation. So my group does well with this, and my group accomplished this. It's just, how big is your dick is basically what that conversation is. So it's a problem because there's a conflict of interest. If me and Aimee are going to sit there and argue IQ scores between Fijians and British people, and be like, well, it just so happens that she's Fijian and I'm British. It's like, wait a minute, this is probably not even going to be an objective conversation. Meanwhile, if Aimee and I want to talk the disparity between, say, North Koreans and South Koreans when it comes to IQ, we don't have a vested interest in that, so we're going to be real about that topic completely. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so most people don't even acknowledge that there's a conflict of interest and that they're trying to hype themselves up. And so therefore we spin our wheels, we talk past each other, and we just beat our chests and say, me, my group, good, me better than you. It's like, what is that about? Yeah.
I don't know.
We went longer than I thought. We went like almost 2.5 hours.
I know, it's good. No, it's good. We're over here jizzing all over the place because it went longer than you meant for it to. It's good.
Yeah.
Oh, so William of the Bong is here.
The Bonger?
Hello.
Hey.
I've infiltrated.
B-load. How's it going?
Not bad. B-load. B-loads. Y'all niggas don't know about B-loads? You don't know the history.
Did you guys learn something about Jared Taylor? Because I assume you guys haven't watched him as much as I have.
Oh, I watched that. I've known of him for a while.
Like I said, Devin, your video was the first time I'd ever heard of him, and yeah, this is the impression I had already got of him. He seems like a nice person and seems correct about most of it.
I mean, yeah, and he acknowledged that some of the stuff that he says is not pleasant to hear. It sounds nasty, and that's 90% of the objection most people have is.
But that's what he said. This is part of growing up. You're gonna have to deal with things you don't like.
But most people don't. Most people only listen and talk about things that please them. For example, if you want to talk about the infant mortality or feline AIDS or how many suicides happen today or what happens to your shit when it goes down the toilet, all that's unpleasant. Nobody wants to talk about that. If you can edit your life, you're going to edit all those topics out. Just like the topics of IQ disparities and crime stats and just some of these things are just not.
Yeah, it's only the stereotypes are only good when they're only not racist when they're good. So,
right, and look, there's a time and a place to talk about all these things. You don't have to be all about, hey, IQ. There's IQ disparities. There's IQ disparities.
When blacks say blacks are taking over all sports, why all of a sudden that's not a bad stereotype? Why can't why isn't that racist?
Yeah, I can notice that it's true, and I can just be like, all right, it's not the end of the world. It's just that's a thing.
It's a fact.
And I should have mentioned to him, like, people are all obsessed about this dick measuring when it comes to IQ, and it's like, look, you could take any person on the planet and say the following statement: there are millions of people that are smarter than you, and you are smarter than millions of people. Now, does that satiate your ego? That is true of everyone, aside from me, obviously. But like, I'm an apex predator when it comes to IQ. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, we are all living in the same situation. There's people better than us. We're better than other people. Who cares? Why are we measuring dicks? Get on with your life.
But I think it just speaks to the competitive nature of human beings. We are competitive, but we're at a point where we have information now where we don't need to be. You know what I mean? Like, it was more of a fitness thing to be competitive, but we live in a world that has made survival and living so easy, and we're still holding on to these very like vestigial evolutionary things that would actually increase our fitness at a certain point in time of our evolutionary history. So I think there's obviously still remnants of those evolutionary mechanisms that got us to this point.
Well, I think it's also safe to say that the way things were done in the past is not necessarily good as we look to the future.
Sure.
So they might have worked, they might be easier, they might be practical. It doesn't mean it's better, like, so why can't we focus on distancing ourselves from a lot of those trends, the bad ones? And I think tribalism is up for grabs in terms of, I understand why it exists. I understand how it exists. Does that mean it should continue to exist and be some noble thing that we should all be like, yes, tribe up. Yes, that's what the cavemen did. No. You can draw different lines in the sand and say, okay, how about this is our tribe? Okay. Like, for example, the Muslim versus non-Muslim, or if you want to cut down there, I mean, I think that's a very important distinction. More important would be the radical Muslims or the Islamists, and say, look, if you are in favor of ISIS and terrorist groups and suicide bombing, you're in this group over here. And that is a very important distinction that I'm going to make. And if you're a Muslim that's against those things, I will acknowledge that. And you're on this side of that. You're on this side of that aisle. You see what I'm saying? But that is beyond race. It's beyond some sort of ancient tribalism. It's a more important brand of tribalism that I would say is positive in nature. It makes sense.
At the end of the day, I just find it really fucking depressing that somebody as proper, and I really liked the end of the conversation, how he ended it with, well, when we drink wine, we say we drink wine, but if you want to whine about it, we whine about it. That's the distinguishing factor between having an H. Yeah, it's true. Like, we're just so fucking lazy. He's like properly speaking English, and we're like, well, no, whale, white. I like that. It was very good. But I think it makes me really sad that somebody like him, who honestly did not really say anything inflammatory or anything that was outwardly racist or even a little bit racist, just eats so much shit.
It's a good point that he talks about, saying that people talk about their own self-interest, but for some reason one group is not allowed to. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, because the very notion that it is a group is contentious. That's the problem.
Yeah, true.
It's not even a group. It's like whites are so, I mean, Jesus. I mean, I challenged him about the crossing borders and cultures thing, like asking if he's biting off more than he can chew, trying to include the Russians and the Italians in this white consciousness. I mean,
I think he failed there because he definitely doesn't know many Russians. If that's the thing.
Well, I mean, it's also
if you don't hate Russians, and you're white, you haven't met many Russians.
But it's just not going to happen because it's like, look at South Africa, not the white-black thing, but the Zulu versus Nigerians in South Africa. Like, they're both black and they couldn't give a fuck. They're like, yeah, we're both black, so what? But they are Nigerian and they have this culture and we're against them for these reasons, and we are Zulu, and it's like,
yeah. If somebody asked in the chat, they were like, "Oh, so it's culture over race?" And I'm like, "Yeah, culture over race. Like, some cultures don't mix regardless of the race." Right?
Yeah.
Think about after 9/11, like it was like one of the first times blacks and whites were very united. It was like, "Fuck those Arabs." Like,
yeah.
That didn't last long.
But I thought the testosterone thing was interesting. I mean, that's something that's not really talked about a lot, but it obviously has an impact on behavior. Testosterone. So, I mean, I found that to be interesting and probably worth talking about some more. because like
interesting topic.
Yeah, every time something happens, it's just like always racism, and it's so apparent that it's a facade and it doesn't exist. It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even rationally make any sense how they think that. And what the sad thing is, they'll take the kernel of truth, which is there are some people who are racist. Yep, there are. Slavery was bad. Yep, it was. I mean, and then they'll just continue that narrative and say, and that's the reason why blacks are not dominating on every front, even though we could, but we're being held back by white people. It just doesn't hold weight because it's not true.
Are you ready for all the backlash?
From who? Like, I'd be interested.
Whoever, like people who wrote about Andy Warski, shit like that.
Well, the
all
people.
I
would say that the people who would find objection to that, they're probably not going to timestamp anything. But also, they already did hate me in the past. There's no chance somebody that knows me or watches my videos saw that and was like, "Oh, well, what is going on with Devin?" It's like, this is exactly in line with. But look, you can get down to numbers. If you want to quantify it, I think it's instructive, and I should have asked him this. If you want an ethno state, if you want to create the ideal society, what percentage would be your people, if that has any meaning to you? And I said,
very little.
I was like 70 to 75% white country. I'm down with that. Let's try to make that work. Obviously, nobody can control this, but you could sort of still theoretically talk about it in the abstract. Now he said 90 to 95%. So that's probably that gives you an idea of where we're at in terms of the difference.
I don't know if I could buy that, because I know he said it. I'm saying I wouldn't want that even 95%. Just
but that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying 70, my mind. That's why I'm saying 70, 75. Yeah. But if you ask a black person, what do you think their answer would be? Ask one of these righteous, Tariq Nasheed.
Oh no, dude! You ever watch black people take DNA tests on YouTube?
Oh shit!
They are not happy when they're any percentage white, and they always mention slavery and all this.
Okay,
shit.
but Billy, imagine this, and this is very uncomfortable. This idea that these people were enslaved. There's white blood in some of their DNA. They were, either by rape or by choice. I don't know which is worse. I mean, they might view both of those as equally.
I don't see how it matters to them. Like, that's what fucking boggles my mind. Like,
but just imagine that their IQ is larger because of this interbreeding with whites, and that they should be thankful from that aspect alone. And so, like the people that were enslaving you and oppressing you, you have to be like thankful to them. Like what? Like psychologically, they just break down.
You don't have to be thankful either. You just that's what you are, and that's
what it is, right?
Exactly. It's so crazy. And like all the white people that take them, it's funny. The white people that take them are like, "Oh, I was hoping I'd be part black or some shit, something exotic," and I'm like, "Wow, you fucking people."
Okay, but you answer me this: what do you think Tariq Nasheed's answer would be? I want to live in a place that's 90% black, 100% black.
No, you'd say 75. You'd say 100.
I mean, what percentage of white people would you be down with? And here's the other thing: I'm talking about 70-75% based on that's what I was born into.
Yeah, exactly.
So like that was just the norm. It's not like I'm coming, we're not just all settling on an island and I'm like, well, I want this island to be like, I'm trying to continue what was, because there's something to be said for that. I mean, if it ain't broke, why fix it? And you can easily make the case that the inclusion of some of these groups is going to disproportionately lead to more ghettos and more crime and et cetera, and more just overt hatred for you and your people. So why would you?
I think the percentage might, I don't know if I'm not sure if it's the percentage of people or the amount you let in at a certain time or whatever, and the gradual growth of it all, That's what I'm not sure about.
But we have to also understand that an experiment like America has no proven track record of working. It just doesn't. So what we're trying to do is next level.
The exact reason why these people who I talk shit to about becoming atheists and all that, like they're like, oh, but it's the pillar of society is Christianity, because we have no fucking proven track record of this before. Because we didn't have societies that were atheistic and all that. So it's like they don't want to try it because they claim they don't have proof it could ever work.
Because of communism.
on small levels, we see success all the time with blacks and whites and all these groups intermingling. Look at this chat room right now. Look at me talk to Jesse Lee Peterson. Look at. I saw a story on Vice, I think, where
I grew up on a block that was all black, but everything around it was like white. So it was very weird. But
right, it's just
I grew up on it. It doesn't like
the co-mingling of peoples. Like I went to elementary school with Koreans and Japanese and Jews, and it was. And a couple blacks, and it's no big deal, and it's fine. It's just you have to have the golden and platinum rule in place. You have to have mutual respect. And if you don't, that's going to rear its head. It's going to come out at some point. Like I was watching this Vice documentary. There was a neo-Nazi who got out of prison and had a parole officer who was a black woman, and she was like up in his life. Yeah.
She married him. He married her or whatever.
I don't think he married her, but they were friends, and she helped him get his life in order, and he changed his views about blacks completely. And then he got his swastika on his chest removed, and she came and visited him, and they were hugging. And it's like, it's a beautiful and glorious thing. It's not that hard to achieve this. I mean, we see this all the time.
Yeah.
But there's tension. And look, I'll tell you about my travels. I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but I'll just finish here. In Australia and in New Zealand. And in Australia, there's open anger and negativity from Aboriginals to white people. And then this white people harbor like a return resentment towards these people because it's like, why do you fucking hate us? Like, Jesus Christ. So that's really raw, and you could see it everywhere in Australia. I go to New Zealand, the Maori people, far more cohesive with the white population. There's a mutual respect. They get along. They don't have that chip on their shoulder, not anywhere near as much as the Aboriginals do. Well, their IQ is greater, but also there probably is historical differences in terms of integration.
It is, like you've said plenty of times, the chip on the shoulder. That's all it is, man.
And the Maori people as a group are doing way better than the Aboriginals. So
that's all it is in America, I believe. Like it's just this chip on the shoulder and the constant right. Teach your kids to like, oh, watch out for them.
I mean, if you're doing well, if you're happy in life, if you have money, if you have hope for your future, you're just going to be more amiable. It's just the way it is. Let's say we initiate reparations tomorrow and we give every black person in America $1 million. You think they're still going to get up there and be like, you know what about this white supremacy, this motherfucker? No, they're going to be like, let's go out and, shop. And let's
be like Chappelle's show.
Let's go buy some rims. Yeah, that's funny. That's what Sam Harris was talking about with that kid. Like they talk about wealth and they talk about people who come into money, and the way that people spend their money also is going to determine whether they're successful with money. That makes a difference. So he was talking about how when black people come into money, they spend it on frivolous shit. Like black women buy more luxury vehicles than white women who are in more affluent situations. And it's decisions like this that put them in the places that they end up being. Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously, of course, it's going to make a difference, whether you have an inheritance or not. Because remember that whole like wealth gap thing, generational wealth or whatever the fuck someone was talking about. It's like, yeah, the reason that like people who are better with their money do better is because they are more wise with their money. There are decisions that are being made on the ground that are conducive to the lifestyles that you're seeing play out in the world.
Oh, trust me, this is a known fact. I mean, I used to hear my father and my grandfather talk about this in terms of Africa, the workers of Africa, not just the gold miners and the diamond miners, any African workers. They have a relationship with money that is universally different than how Westerners treat money. And it's irresponsible, and it's not conducive to saving or making smart investments. They will spend it immediately. So if you give them a paycheck on Friday, it's gone by Monday, and they're drunk as a skunk coming into work on Monday. That's not obviously this is a general thing, but it is most definitely true. My grandfather was like, no, I'm telling you, this is what happens. Literally, this is what happens. So some people would do things like they wouldn't give them the paycheck. They would give it to their wives, who would be less likely to spend it. They would hold it back for them because, like, dude, this is not good for you. You're going to waste this.
Yeah.
Now that is being paternalistic. Yeah, but it's like, dude, we're trying to help you. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. And that's just
that doesn't work either. You can't really help them either. They have to help themselves. It doesn't work that way.
How is it to our advantage, to white people's advantage, or to any non-blacks advantage, that blacks continue to suffer and not succeed as a group? Why would we want that in any way?
Right.
Yeah. And in the U.S., they're Americans. We want our own people to thrive.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's almost like this drowning man syndrome. I feel like if you're a drowning man and you see someone swimming and you can't swim and you're freaking out about drowning, what happens is they grab the guy and they have to bring him down to lift themselves up.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
so
they'll drown the guy saving them to save themselves.
Here's the
Yeah.
thing. I think that's the people who are adamant, or the kind of people that want to see other people fail instead of see everybody succeed together, are the kinds of people who have the attitudes where they victimize themselves and think people just want to see them drown. No, motherfucker, you want to see people drown. You're projecting that outward, and instead of handling your bullshit, you're just blaming everybody else for
Yeah, and
things
so-
that you want to see. You want to see people fail. You don't want to see people succeed.
So here's the analogy. It's like, yeah, the Titanic has sunk. There's a bunch of people of a variety of races all swimming in the water. I'm sitting in a lifeboat, and some guy's like, I got to drown you. I got to get you off that lifeboat. Meanwhile,
Right.
I'm like, dude, I didn't cause this ship to sink. I'm not the
Right.
reason you're in the water. If you want to survive, go kick Kate Winslet off that door and rest on that. Like, just
Yeah.
deal with it. You have to. I'll help you. Hey, there's room in my boat. Come on in. But do not try to lessen us for your gain. That's not how this is
Crabs
working.
in a bucket. No,
What does that mean?
that's what they call like the
That's what-
mentality. Like they say that
That's
about
what crabs
blacks
do. When
keep
you
each
put
other
them
down,
together,
like
crabs
someone's
follow
getting
you.
out of the ghetto situation, whatever.
Mm.
And you know, if you're a crab's in a bucket and a crab's crawling out of the bucket, another one will grab it with its claw and just
Yeah,
'cause it's
yeah, that's
trying
what
to
crabs
get up.
do. Lobsters
Interesting.
do that as well in tanks. Like you'll see them all pile up on one side and trying to drag each other down to climb up.
yeah, same type of thing.
But I don't know, the way people look at other people, and like, it doesn't. At the end of the day, like me personally, virtue coming. I want to see people do better. So like, we're gonna hold ourselves to a certain standard that we are gonna hold those other people. That's what the opposite of the bigotry of low expectations is. But generally, if you're the type of person who feels bitterness towards other people's success and other people doing better than you, you're probably going to be the type of person that does pull them down. You don't want, like, again, you don't want to see people succeed and do well because you're not succeeding and doing well.
But that's kind of the regressive issue. That's what their problem is that they want
it's
equality,
wrong.
but in order to get equality, instead of rising up to the other one's level, they want to bring the others down to their level.
Yeah, it's pure projection too.
That doesn't work as well. Why bring everyone down?
No. It's a projection of your the inner workings of you too. Like, you know, I don't care how much I dislike a person or hate them or whatever. Like, at the end of the day, it's better for everybody if everybody is doing well and working towards their ideal. It's better for everyone, not just for you individually, but for everyone around you, because they don't have to deal with your fucking bullshit. No, I don't know. Your insecurities and your fucking shortfalls and your insufficiencies aren't my problem, but they become my problem when all of you guys get together and you want to scream and say everybody's holding you down when you're failing to recognize where your energy is being spent. Your energy is being put into complaining and projecting your nonsense outward instead of actually using that energy to better your lives and do better, even though it's hard. Because you know what? Like, I think I was telling Dan this earlier today. Like, it really sucks for the people who are in these situations where, you know, they are downtrodden and things do suck. But you know what they're doing? They're not bitching and complaining, man. Like, they're doing the hard jobs and they're just keeping their head down and they're doing what they need to fucking do to just get to the next day and succeed in whatever way they can. Those are the people who actually deserve help and they don't get it. And then the people who actually need help, they get overshadowed by these people who just want to bitch and complain and get shit for free. They just want everybody to give in to their requests and their desires. And it just leaves a whole swath of people that don't get attention. You know what I mean? Who deserve it. Oh, Devin's mic died. Devin, why?
I just
Well,
posted.
it's all right, Jamie. Do you know what that means then?
It's time.
For the Jamie Show!
Oh, no. You guys
Channel
invade.
takeover.
Take over every channel on YouTube is coming true.
Hello. I'm
Oh,
back.
there he is.
Okay.
Oh, and
Jesus.
Devin Tracey is back on the Jamie show.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
Channel
sorry.
hijacked.
I left you with these thoughts and these random people.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was awful.
So rude.
Someone in the chat posted a video and I checked it out, and it's like something about Australia, that now white nurses in Australia have to apologize for.
I saw that. I was going to bring it up. Yeah, I'm going to do a video on that.
No.
Somebody said that there's a guy on Facebook impersonating me, asking for nudes. Yeah,
What?
yeah, Facebook let me know about it, and they're like, "Yeah, we think we found an impersonator. We're going to take action on it." So yeah.
Oh, nice. They're good on that, though.
Yep, they're on top of it.
Cool.
So yeah, what were we saying? I accused him of trying to intern the Japanese, which he didn't like me mentioning, but yeah, I think
I mean, he was born in Japan.
I think we're going to navigate our way through this madness eventually. It's just a matter of people getting a grip, and yeah, what is the opposite of the bigotry of low expectations? It's basically the respect of having high expectations.
Yeah.
So is their criticism of me? You think too much of black people. You expect too much.
Well, that's because
You're
they're
not racist.
in an obvious oppressed state. You can't expect high expectations from people who have no means to get there.
Yeah, and I think it's not a coincidence that a lot of these people try to latch on and find parallels to the civil rights movement. So it's like, first there was Harriet Tubman, and then there was Martin Luther King, and now we have Colin Kaepernick. It's all one and the same. They're all black people. I mean, it's just retarded. It's like, but they want to be part of some struggle. And, this is a perfect marriage to the regressive whites who want to be part of a revolution. And they want to be involved in some sort of, upheaval or some sort of massive positive change for society. Meanwhile, they are the instruments of destruction for society. They're the ones causing the problem. They claim to be problem solvers. They are themselves the problem. Solve yourself.
I was watching today because I might do something about Wu-Tang, a video, and I was watching some old shit, and one of them's back in the neighborhood making this little 5-minute flick or whatever, and he's talking about how whatever we come back to help out the kids and all this shit, and then like you hear gunshots in the background, right? Because they're in the fucking projects in Staten Island, like in the 90s. So you hear gunshots in the background, and then like 2 minutes later, the cops roll up and shit. And like, see, they always over here harassing us and shit. What the fuck? Like, why are they checking up for guns and shit? Because I'm like, because they just fucking heard gunshots, dude. I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's like, we need to put an end.
No caring about, like, and they're always complaining about how the ghetto's fucked up and it's dangerous. Yeah. But the cops are more of a problem in the ghetto for them than.
That's true. That is the mentality.
For some fucking reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. Here's what we need to put to bed. Any grievance, this whole bullshit about cops are somehow the enemy of black people, that whole thing is absolute, just embarrassing that they continue with that. It's just such a non-argument. It's all bullshit. And on top of that, my message to black people, stop saying you didn't do nothing. You did. You did do something. And really, it's not even just what you're doing, it's what you're not doing. So what you are doing is being a petty victim who is hateful and racist towards whites. But what you're not doing is getting married. What you're not doing is raising your children. What you're not doing is going to school and getting a job. What you're not doing is not commit crimes. So how about focus on that instead of bitching at white people because we're sick of it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some of them that do it, and it's like, why don't they look up to those people and try to follow their lead? There's some of them make it out of the ghetto, some of them become rich and move to nice areas. Don't
because I'll tell you why.
Follow that lead.
Many of the people who gain success in whatever profession, and then they get asked these questions about social issues, and they're likely to side with the mainstream argument of whatever is pro-black, which is shit on your white masses and just say, yeah, man, it's totally fucked up and racist, but keep buying tickets. Yeah, keep buying tickets to my movie. Because if you're Denzel Washington or Morgan Freeman and you go, look, we got problems that are within the black community that can be solved by the black community. This has nothing. You guys are exaggerating all this racism bullshit. Like, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist ever, but come on, man, you got to keep this in perspective.
Patrice O'Neal was like a regular on Opie and Anthony's show.
I love Patrice O'Neal. I met him right before
he said in one of the things, like, they're like, oh, why do black people do this with the hats? It's like to piss off white people.
But
He's like, everything you ask, why do they do this?
Yeah.
To piss off white people. He's like,
Yep.
but guess what?
Yeah.
Their ticket sales would go down. They would be boycotted. They'd be,
Yeah.
oh,
No,
you
no,
fucking
but I mean,
traitor,
like,
you this and that.
like, you know, like if you ask, like, why do you wear your pants hanging? Oh, it's to piss off whitey. You know?
You know what they do? They mental gymnastics that shit. I've seen an article talking about Morgan Freeman just saying like, because you know he's black and they don't want to blame him for the things he said. You know, they have to make the excuse that he's old and he's not up to date with what's going on. You know.
Please.
He
So
has
it's
more
like,
reason to understand. He
Yeah,
was
I seen an
around
article
with-
of Asian people in America saying they don't care what people say in their native countries about race because they don't understand because they live in an ethno state. They were saying about, you know, like Scarlett Johansson and Ghost in the Shell, like whitewashing and stuff. And they're like, since Japan doesn't care, it's like, oh, they don't understand because their nations are anti, you know, they don't deal with what we deal with. It's like, what?
I think this problem has been a long time coming to talk about and to shed some light on. I think that for many black people, they have a case of dirty diaper syndrome, which is they just don't like the current state of their existence. Like they shat their pants. And I don't care what you're doing. If you have shit sitting there stuck up on your thighs and in between your crack, you're not going to be happy and you're going to be unpleasant in general. That's how they view being in a white majority country, especially with the history of this country. They're like, I just don't like where I am in this world. I don't like any of this shit. I don't like that history. I don't like the fact that I'm not the majority.
It's definitely, I don't like the history.
Right. And so this is like they can't accept that. And because they can't accept that, we have to suffer for it.
Yeah, I get shit on these 3 videos that I have on my fucking channel that are just telling the story about what happened with this fucking girl that got killed in New York City. And it happened to be a black kid. They found out like 6 months later. They found the guy. They matched DNA and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a conspiracy, bro. It's a fucking, the man is doing this. It's not really him.
Right. Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, bro. The
I
shit
know.
I'm getting in my comments.
Did you
I cannot believe it.
Did you hear the latest one with that Thurman Blevins dude? And they're like, justice for Thurman Blevins and shit. And it's like, he didn't have a gun. He didn't do nothing. It's like, dude, can we get an apology from these people? Be like, look, first of all, you lied. All these people are like, yeah, man, I saw he just put his hands up and was like, you didn't have a gun? No, just put his hands up.
Dude,
Like, you're a fucking liar.
Kid confessed and they have his DNA evidence and they're like, no, they fucking coerced the fucking confession out of him. This is bullshit. There's no way he did it. I'm like, based on what? This is based on nothing. Based on absolutely zero.
But I mean, you literally have a guy shooting at the cops, turning around, shooting bullets at the cops, and they're like, fucking racism.
Oh wait, I don't see the bullet. I didn't hear the shot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you
it's
saw the turn around with the gun, no?
right, and there is other footage where you actually can see where the bullet landed, and they have the evidence. They have all the DNA. Like they have the bullet from his gun.
Planted
how
the DNA. They said they
right,
could
of course,
the
the
DNA.
whole
How
thing.
could you what? They
all
didn't
fake
know
news.
this guy. So wait, like with the case that I was doing on my shit, the 6 months before is the murder. 6 months later, they catch the guy. So you're telling me before the murder, they had his DNA, or sometime in between there and now, and they planted it on it day one because they said they had DNA on fucking day one.
Oh my
So,
god!
my
They
God.
planted it out.
How did they do that? How did they magically plant DNA? Like, where did they get his DNA from? Like,
Yeah, and it's like,
was my mom.
I mean, this has been going on for forever. Like they thought they framed OJ.
exactly. You
Like,
talk about it with OJ. It's fucking crazy. Man.
Yeah, like why on earth would it doesn't
What?
make any sense, and they're just so married to the concept that everything's against them and they're so special. And that's another thing. You ain't that special. I'm not nobody look as a representative of white people, I don't spend any fraction of my day thinking about what about them Asians, what about them Hispanics, what about the blacks? I don't care. Like we don't have the energy to be taking action against you for no reason whatsoever. It's just ludicrous.
Somehow they do though. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Maybe if they spent more energy on other things besides that, they could do better.
I know, it's phenomenal. And so many people in the mainstream are just so easy to push over, and they just don't push back on any of this crap. You know, Black Lives Matter. Oh, I better be on the right side of history. They're probably the next, Martin Luther King people.
Something had to go wrong at some point because I'm pretty sure, like in the early part of the century, like black families and everything were thriving more than it was growing in a good direction, and then it just all went fucking downhill.
Right. I mean, so if you were to dispute any of these facts, but single parent families, we know what the studies show on that, not just by race, just in general. If you're a single parent, we know what poverty does. Okay, we know how that might affect upbringing or how you perform. But we also have many, many examples of how people overcome poverty and do not act in terrible ways, even if you're poor. It's not an excuse. But we know about testosterone. We know about IQ. We have many, many case studies of how different groups perform in different parts of the world. So what is left to be explained here? Where is the gap for you to shove racism in? It doesn't make sense. And so,
it's just it's like it's the white versus black. Oh, so it must be this.
Yeah,
it's autumn. It's really just that.
And what they do, it's a shame. What they do is they insult their ancestors who were slaves, who did face racism and structural racism, and were an oppressed group of people, because they're trying to leverage that. They're trying to profit off of the actual struggle, the actual bullshit that those people went through. And they're using it as an excuse for their continued failure. And that's an abysmal strategy. It makes me sick to think that that's the way that they're going to choose to go with this. And then you have, I love it when it hits a dead end, though. I love it when they say that jury was probably racist. The jury was racist. And without any understanding that the jury was.
I've heard what you said in the OJ videos you did about how they were like, yeah, it was revenge. They admit to it. I've seen it. We just happy that the man, that a black person,
it
wasn't even that he got justice. It was that he got off for something. Because so many times, I guess, they're claiming so many times it was reversed. So
if you ever want to say black people can't be racist, just say the response to that is just O.J. Simpson. You've been proven incorrect because of the bullshit surrounding the O.J. Simpson case. Look at how people reacted to that verdict.
It's crazy because no one's okay, if what's his face, Scott Peterson, right? He got off. Did he get off, or did he get?
He went to jail.
Okay, if he got off, would any white people be like, yeah?
Yeah, no, exactly. Nobody would, but there was no interracial thing. But take a look at Dylan Roof. So if Dylan Roof went to trial and he was acquitted. Okay, so there's a ton of evidence that Dylan Roof.
Exactly. By the way, would we be clapping?
There is probably more evidence. It's a better case that OJ killed Nicole and Ron Goldman than Dylan Roof killed those black people. But there were some eyewitnesses. But okay, if Dylan Roof was acquitted and then one of the jurors, a white male juror, threw up a Nazi salute at him, that is what happened in the OJ case, where the black male juror put up a black power fist to OJ as he left the courtroom. It's fucking crazy.
That is crazy.
That's totally acceptable.
Well, how did they get away with it being a mostly black jury anyway? I know the area is black.
No. It shouldn't have been black at all. It was moved. The court.
Yeah.
They moved it to downtown because, put it this way, they could have had a white jury, but they were so worried about. Yeah, is this going to look racist if we have a white jury judging OJ and then convicting him because he obviously killed these people? So Marsha Clark and the prosecution were so overconfident in the case that they said, we could have fucking Chinese women on this jury. It doesn't matter whoever it is, and they're going to find this person guilty. And she thought because it was stuffed with women, so there was 8 or 9 women on that jury, that was going to override the racial tribalism because this is a wife beater. This is a guy who's killed a woman, an innocent woman. And no, they're actually, sorry.
She misjudged that. She doesn't. The final frontier of division is race.
Right. If you ever want to,
it's not sex.
If you ever want to overestimate something, don't make it black women's affinity for white women. Okay, they have a big issue. I would say that those two groups are not the best of friends. Wouldn't you agree? And there's probably very easy to figure out reasons as to why.
I was actually finding these random shits are popping up on YouTube, and that was sort of one of them was who hates if you're black, do you hate it more when someone's oh, I got a white girlfriend, or when I have a black girlfriend? If you're a white man, you have a black girlfriend, or which gets picked on more for stepping out? It's definitely the men.
Oh, I think
bitched out more.
They interviewed some of these black female jurors on the OJ case, and they were shocked because they didn't care that OJ left his race and surrounded himself with white people and socially and business wise, and with his wife, left his black wife for a white wife. They were mad at the white woman. OJ was off the hook completely for that because he's still, at the end of the day, he's still a powerful, rich, iconic black man who's had success.
Though were definitely saying that, like, claiming that men get bitched out more for stepping out of their race than the women do. Like, the dudes don't care as much if a black bitch fucks a white dude.
And there also isn't a mass exodus of black men who leave black women. They choose other women. Now that is insulting.
Indian men don't like Indian women with white men, though. Trust me, I know.
If white women left the option of white men to the same degree that black men have left the option of black women, I would be offended. I'd be like, what the fuck? What's wrong with me?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. It's probably not the same with the West Coast, but here on the East Coast, like, Hispanic people don't mind their kids dating white people. Like, they kind of like it, I think, in some
well, it's also a sign of social status in many ways.
Yeah, Puerto Rican,
exactly.
I guess.
But it depends. It depends on what Hispanics are. You're right, Puerto Ricans, but most in general don't really care. Like,
because in some ways, it's the American dream. A lot of these people, like, they get that revenge fuck in, and it's like, yeah, man, I really made it because I'm,
I would say this, Alf. I would say the parents and the grandparents may be like that, but the kids are the opposite problem.
Are they now? Yeah, I don't know how it is.
No, I would say the kids, Hispanic children, would try and bitch you out more if you stepped out and tried to be with a white person.
Really? I don't know. Maybe it's different in Brooklyn. I don't see it here.
I don't know. Well, because the blacks and the Hispanics associate with each other more.
This is the area where I would say it's the bigotry of high expectations, where it's like they want to marry their daughters off to white men so they make money and move up. Yeah. It's like, normally I wouldn't want you dating white people, but he probably has money. Date him.
It's sad because we have a conversation like that, and all of you all get it, and my audience gets it. But that's such a small minority of people. And tomorrow there's going to be more race baiting, more inflaming, more people, insidious people making money off of this, horrible path that they're on, and just stupid people buying into it because it's just, I don't know, it's more pleasing to think that this is how the world is when it's just a gigantic waste of time, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I
don't get it.
Somehow the Young Turks Alive is the first suggestion under your hangout right here.
Yeah, that's bad. Well, guys, I'm going to go out and grab some dinner and stop talking because my mouth has been operational far too long.
No, you're not allowed to leave.
Many hours.
But you guys can start another chat, and I'll let you guys entertain me while I eat some steak.
Yeah,
I'm going to the gym, man. I waited at home just to finish with you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys popping in and having a little chit chat. But let's move on with our lives.
Enjoy your dinner.
Take it.
Bye, guys.
All right, bye.
Bye.